Hi librarians, this is Maureen Barclay to move on to Activity 2 where we explore story maps and ArcGIS. Story maps are a great way to present information and embed maps. You could use them to create activities and lessons with your students, or students could create their own maps to showcase their learning in a particular content area. Here we go. So on our Adobe Spark page, let's look at Activity 2. And first, let's just read about story maps and what that's about. This overview gives us some explanation about how we can use story maps for telling stories and exploring locations, events, or trends. So if you want to read that a little bit more, you can also learn more from their videos. That's just kind of an overview. To continue with story maps, you'll need to create a public account. Anyone can create a public account. You might sign up with Google or something like that. And once you have a public account, you'll be able to create story maps with what are called express maps. And you could embed maps that other people make on ArcGIS, and your students can do the same. So make sure that if you want to complete a story map with me today, that you go ahead and create a public account, pause the video, and then just resume with us in a moment. Just to give you a sample of what a story map looks like, this is a story map I created as just something fun to do when ArcGIS created their newest version of story maps. I made a map of Game of Thrones filming locations. The series was finishing up at the time, and I was about to, really miss my favorite TV show. So you can see it looks a lot like Adobe Spark, if you're familiar with the Adobe Spark pages, web pages, just like the one that I used to create this workshop. And you can embed photos, drop in text content, and embed maps. This is what's called an express map. And create these little pop-ups with map notes. You can add photos of your own. All of the photos I found are on Unsplash, which is kind of like a Creative Commons website, these really professional photos. And I included little blurbs about these filming locations from the Game of Thrones series. So that's fun, just fun to explore. You can click on each of those. And, oops. Zoom back out here, keep scrolling down, and then I have a photo to close it out. So that's just a really short story map. I created this story map, Crime in Our Community. During a recent mayoral election, there was a lot of talk about crime rates in Shreveport, and different candidates were talking about different crime rates, kind of bringing their own numbers to the table in these debates. So I created this story map that could be used in the classroom to help students explore what the candidates were saying, and I've linked articles here, and SPD, or Shreveport Police Department Annual Crime Reports, and then also look at some maps that I created on ArcGIS. Okay. Gosh, I hope it doesn't ask you guys to sign in. Okay, hopefully it won't ask you guys to sign in. I see that sometimes when I visit this page, and sometimes I don't, and I'm not sure what's going on there. What I want you to see is this map. This is actually one map that I've manipulated in different ways. So we're going to look at the same map a few different ways. So right now we're looking at the National Crime Index. And I'm asking students to think about, what's the National Crime Index? I can see Louisiana. I can go like state to state here and see the crime index, okay, nationwide. So the national average is 100, and we can see what individual states' crime index is, if it's higher or lower than the national average of 100. And we can click through and see different values of personal crime versus property crime. So they could do a little bit of exploring and digging into the data for Louisiana by clicking through those pop-ups. Okay, if they keep scrolling down, they'll see this zoomed in version of Louisiana, and they could look at our particular parish. And they can see that the national average is 100 and our crime index is 184. And they can drill down further into those different personal and property crime indices. And they could use this to make an argument. Okay. And then we can drill down even further. These are census tracts. And I would ask students to talk about what they observe. The darker the color red, the higher the crime index. And so I'd ask them to talk about patterns that they see. Like maybe where are the highest indices? And then we could look at this tract view, and they could maybe draw the conclusion that the highest rates of crime are in these really urban areas on either side of the Red River. And I might ask them to have a discussion or do some writing about what kind of policy recommendations they might consider or proposed based on the given data. Okay, so that's a way you can use story maps and maps that you create yourself to engage students in some evidence-based discussions, some text-based discussions. And that's kind of interesting. We also have this map that I created, tornado risk at Captain Shreve High School. And creating this map involved some of the analytical capabilities of ArcGIS. So I created a story map and used my Unsplash photos and kind of set the tone. In 2019, Captain Shreve students were in the midst of completing the final half of their AP European History exams when the unthinkable happened. Principal Gustafson announced, "Teachers, please follow the procedure for a tornado drill." But this time, it wasn't a drill. Our students had to actually get out of their testing seats. We had to report all this to the College Board, and they had to hunker down in the hallway as a tornado passed over our campus. So we could look at data available in the ArcGIS database and see the historical pattern of tornadoes across the United States, actually. And I built this very simple map to illustrate this tornado that was in our neighborhood in 1966. We can see that it was like the date and the time. That's pretty cool. And we can see the path of that tornado here. That was pretty neat. And I built, highlighted our campus with a map note. Got a little pin here for it. And that's just, those are things that you can build out and customize. It's pretty cool. I think that 5 doesn't mean, here's the EF scale. It was only an EF scale 1. But that was pretty interesting. And I'm hoping to post a third Lanyap activity on our Spark page that shows the steps I used to create this particular map and show you some of the analytical features of the ArcGIS database that you'll have access to if you have an organizational account. So then we can look at how Captain Shreve's location might affect the risk for future tornadoes. And here I've used the hot spot analytical feature to see where the most dangerous tornadoes are clustered. And you can see the darker purple areas are the higher risk areas. And so we might ask students to make an argument about the level of risk that our school is at for a future tornado, and they would determine it's very low. But if you're in another location, there might be a different argument to make. All right, so that's an overview of some sample story maps. Let's go in and make a story map together. Okay, hopefully you created a public account, and you can go to this link to create your account or log in. And once you're logged in, you'll see ArcGIS story maps, any collections that you've created, any stories you want to create. And we're just going to go to New Story, Create a Story. We're just going to do one from scratch. And we can call this LLA Explorers ArcGIS. And you could add a short title if you would like. And here's where we can start to include some text. And this is kind of like a plug-and-play style creator. It's pretty cool. So just spend some time playing around with the different features you can add. Things like buttons, something to separate content if you have a lot of content, images. They do have an image gallery, and that's going to be some really great stock photos. Right now I use Unsplash, unsplash.com, and I just download those images and then upload them to my story maps, but I'm glad that they're adding this image gallery. You can embed your own videos, audio, all kinds of stuff. And you can add a slideshow, a sidecar, and a map tour. Those are, just really cool different features, and they look a lot like those on Adobe Spark, kind of like the page I created for today's work. Let's go to Map and maybe practice creating an express map. So these are maps that I've created in ArcGIS, and if you have an ArcGIS account with an organization, then you've been able to create maps. But most of us are probably pretty new, so let's just create an express map. I'm going to skip that. This is just super easy, plug and play. If you want to search for maybe your school location, I'll search for mine, 6115 East Kings Highway. Okay, but you can search for anything. Add that to the map. And here you can add an image, maybe something from your computer. Cancel. And you can add your map notes description. Okay. That's pretty cool. And then make sure you click done. Okay. I could search for, let's see, Versailles. And add that to the map. And it's just really cool. You can search all around the world. Okay, when you're finished, click done. And you can always go back and edit your map. These are different ways to feature this map if you want it to float maybe in something. You might just play around with the features there. And you can keep going. You can add more maps. You can add more images. Your students can as well. This is a really cool way to help them tell stories and showcase their learning and tie into those digital literacy standards that we're teaching. So guys, that's story maps. I hope you enjoy exploring more of those features. And if you want any additional help or you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is here, msbarclay@caddoschools.org. Take care.